The Aeldari effectively signed their own death warrant millennia ago, when the actions of their race led to the birth of the Chaos God Slaanesh. Though their decline since this cataclysmic fall has been relatively slow, not one Aeldari faction can truly say it has thrived since the birth of She Who Thirsts, instead simply warding off the god's hunger as best it can through various means. There was no hope of salvation for the Aeldari, no way to defeat the doom they created, simply the inevitability of annihilation. At least, that was the case until recently. For now a new faction rises, one wielding the souls of the dead as a source of power, and with a new god capable of potentially toppling Slaanesh once and for all. The deity's name is Ynnead, the Aeldari god of the dead, and the faction following it, led by the Emissary Yvraine, are known simply as the Ynnari. This is Tactica Imperialis, and welcome to 40k Stories. The fall of the Aeldari happened in late M30, heralding the birth of the Chaos God Slaanesh. Slaanesh had been gestating in the warp for millennia, created by the hedonistic and prideful excesses of the Aeldari Empire that reflected in the warp. As things became more and more depraved, the nascent deity grew stronger and stronger, feeding on the emotions of the Aeldari until it was finally birthed into full existence. And despite gorging itself during its gestation, Slaanesh was eternally hungry, and the souls of the Aeldari were on the menu. The psychic scream of the god that is known to the Aeldari as She Who Thirsts was genocide for those who had birthed it. This was the fall of the Aeldari, and it changed the look, ethos, and fate of the entire race. The race splintered into several major factions: the Asayani, who inhabit the various craft worlds, the Drukhari, who inhabit the dark city of Commorragh, the Harlequins, servants of Shagarach and guardians of the Black Library, and the Exodites, who live on relatively rustic worlds and will even ride dinosaurs into combat. If the Aeldari suffered from the fall, though, it was nothing compared to their pantheon of gods. All save 3 were completely killed and destroyed, consumed by Slaanesh, and of those 3, only 1 escaped unscathed. The other 2 were either splintered into shards or captured by one of the other Chaos Gods. However, even after their race was shattered and their pantheon all but annihilated by it, the Aeldari still had much to fear from Slaanesh. For She Who Thirsts was still hungry for the souls of its creators. Every Aeldari to die following the fall would have their soul forfeited to and consumed by Slaanesh, and even those still living found their souls being slowly eaten away. Since that is a fate worse than death itself, the various Aeldari factions all found a way to cheat or otherwise avoid consumption by Slaanesh. The Asayani utilized spirit stones in infinity circuits, keeping their souls stored away so they never enter the warp to be consumed. Same for the Exodites to some extent. As for the Harlequins, they trust in their patron god Shagarach to protect their souls, as the laughing god is said to gamble for the soul of every fallen performer. The Drukhari play an even more dangerous game, however, as they do not protect their souls and instead never intend on dying, rejuvenating themselves through the pain and suffering of others to stave off Slaanesh's and their hunger. Such has been the way of things for millennia, and despite their best efforts, there was no way out for the Aeldari, no escape from the fate they created for themselves in the fall. And yet, one legend or rumour existed, one potential strand of hope held to by a few, even if most no one believed it. It was thought that, much like the actions of the Aeldari in life spawned Slaanesh, so the deaths of the Aeldari were creating a new god or entity. However, unlike She Who Thirsts, a chaos god within the warp, this being was a new member of the Aeldari pantheon, forming within the infinity circuits of the craft worlds and made from the souls within them. The belief was that the death of the last Aeldari would cause the awakening of this entity, and it would finally be able to defeat Slaanesh and avenge the now extinct species. Unfortunately, anything less than mutual annihilation according to legend would not be enough, as otherwise the entity would stand no chance against a full-blown chaos god. This didn't stop unknown seers saying it was the best, if not the only hope for the Aeldari's continued survival, so maybe they know something I don't. To those few who believed, this entity was known as Ynnead, god of the dead, but some would not wait for species-wide extinction in the Rana Dandra, the final battle against chaos, to see it awakened. Though the myths of Ynnead were not always believed, there were those who planned and then actually attempted to awaken the god of the dead. Probably the most famous of these attempts came very late in M41, just before the event known as the Gathering Storm, on the crystal moon of Coheria. It was undertaken by none other than Eldrad Ulthran of the craft world Ulthwé. When the Farsi had become a believer and or servant of Ynnead, however, is unknown. Eldrad's plan was as intricate and crazy and convoluted as one might expect for an Aeldari Farseer. By channeling psychic power through the Infinity Circuit, where of course Ynnead was believed to be growing, he wished to prematurely awaken the god with the aid of the crystallized remains of dead Farseers. This sounds weird and morbid, but it's actually the fate of any seer, as they are equivalent to physical death by old age. He enlisted the Harlequins to aid him in this endeavour, though I am very curious as to why the devoted servants of Tregarak would be allied with Ynnead, unless the Lothian god's plans also involved the nascent god of the dead. Whatever the reason for the alliance, Eldrad's gambit would ultimately fail. A stroke of luck, good or bad depending on whose side you're on, saw the distress signal from Port Demesnes, the planet from which Coheria was moon of, was intercepted by the Death Watch under Captain Artemis, and the battle that followed destabilized the ritual in spectacular fashion. The Death Watch evacuated and Eldrad fled as the crystalline moon exploded, but despite this incredibly costly setback, Eldrad pressed on. His main ally amongst the Harlequins was the Shadowseer Sylandri Veilwalker, who was dispatched to ensure Eldrad would meet with Belisarius Call, but for the moment the Farseer had another, more pressing task. A new faction of Ynnead followers had emerged, known as the Ynnari, and Eldrad revealed himself as one of their number. He joined up with the leader of the faction, the Emissary Yvraine, who we will discuss in full later, and the Ynnari sought access to Craftworld Biel-Tan. The reason they sought to reach the Craftworld was twofold. The first was its possession of one of the artifacts known as the Crone Swords, thought to be critical to the end goal of the Ynnari to fully awaken Ynnead. And the second was the access to the Infinity Circuit in order to awaken Ynnead's avatar. Unfortunately, the forces of Slaanesh and Khorne sought to prevent these things and thus invaded Biel-Tan, reaching the webway on the Exodite world Ursulia, and it was here that the Ynnari would first strike. They were able to both seal the portal on Ursulia and then reach Biel-Tan, racing to stop the Mask of Slaanesh from destroying the craft world from the Infinity Circuit. They did so, even furthering their own plans in the process, but it came at a terrible cost. Many souls within the Infinity Circuit were sacrificed, but from their deaths came new life. Incarn, the avatar of Ynnead. The newly awakened Incarn was able to drive off the mask, but such was the cost, millions of souls, that this battle is known to some as the Fracture of Biel-Tan, and would actually see Eldrad exiled from Ulthwé's Seer Council. It will have been worth it in the eyes of the Ynnari, though, of that I have no doubt, as Incarn is actually fundamental to the overarching plan. Said plan is known as a seventh path, a supposed way to awaken or resurrect Ynnead, but without sacrificing the entirety of the Aeldari. But the ins and outs are very unclear, perhaps even unknown. All we know for sure is that Incarn would be essential to the plan, and Yvraine believes that possession of the 5 Crone Swords, believed in legend to have been carved from the fingers of the goddess Morai Heg, will grant her the power to awaken Ynnead. But beyond that, we know nothing. Following Incarn's awakening, and then a massive battle on Craftworld Yanda to claim another Crone Sword, the Ynnari pressed on to meet up with the other stage of Eldrad's plan, meeting with Belisarius Call and the other Imperials fleeing from the loss of Cadia in the 13th Black Crusade. Incarn went missing en route, disappearing seemingly during or after the Ynnari were ambushed by Azakaran and the Thousand Suns, but the two races met on the moon of Chrysis at the edge of the Cadia system. From there, despite the presence of the hardline Black Templars and the Inquisitor Greyfax, an alliance between human and Aeldari was forged, and both factions travelled through the webway together with a sole destination: Macragge. Of course, once they arrived there, the technology of Call and the abilities of Yvraine would be used to resurrect Ultramarines Primarch Roboute Guilliman. But the Ynnari as a whole did not fight in the invasion of Macragge by the Black Legion, having all left the Imperials save for a couple of members once they arrived. What they have done as a faction following this is less clear, though undoubtedly they are pursuing the Crone Swords and, if he hasn't turned up yet, searching for Incarn as well. Whether they will ultimately succeed in awaken Ynnead is unknown at this time, but they may just pull it off, and if they do, it will have potentially massive consequences for the Aeldari race and their arch-enemy Slaanesh too. The Ynnari are a somewhat unique faction amongst the Aeldari, as they are able to traverse all divides between the members of their race. Believers in Ynnead come from all walks of life and from all realms and factions, and so the Ynnari's ranks include Asayani, Drakari, and even Harlequins, all united under the banner of the God of the Dead, along with piratical corsairs and potentially even Exodites. The initial members who arrived at Biel-Tan appeared to be mainly Drakari and Harlequins, though this will be due to circumstance as much as anything, and at this moment we sadly do not have any percentages for their exact composition. However, not all Eldari see the Ynnari in a positive light. In the eyes of some, Yvraine and her followers are arrogant to the point of alienating the already haughty Aeldari. Given they wish to return the glory of the Aeldari Empire, some may well be concerned that they are repeating history. In fact, despite the massive efforts that Slaanesh and the other ruinous powers have made to stop the Ynnari, some believe they are in fact chaos corrupted, though I personally find this unlikely given some of the things they've done, e.g. resurrecting a Primarch. I mean, why? They fight for the most part as they do in their own factions, albeit as a united cohesive army rather than in little clusters by faction, but with one major twist. The Ynnari possess spirit stones much like the Asayani do, but instead of being empty or stones to contain their own souls, these are stones with the souls of already deceased Aeldari. I'm actually curious what the Ynnari do to save their souls from Slaanesh actually, whether they rely on Ynnead or they use their typical methods of their faction, or if they all use spirit stones. I haven't had any confirmation. The Ynnari will use these souls in many ways, with the most powerful amongst them even able to commune with the dead. The most common use of the stones is bolstering the psychic abilities of the Ynnari, but it is not just the power of those long past that the servants of Ynnead can draw from. In the heat of battle, the life energy of those who fall on the battlefield can be siphoned off by the Ynnari, empowering those still alive and making them even more dangerous to face. There isn't much of a command structure to the Ynnari, though of course Yvraine is likely the overall commander as Ynnead's emissary. Eldrad almost certainly has a prominent role to play as a seer and one of the most powerful Aeldari psykers still alive, and when he's around I'm curious how Incarn fits into all of it. But the only other real commander for the Ynnari is a mysterious individual known as the Vizarch. This individual has a shadowed history, with his armour having more than one faction relevant within it, but his presence in Comorar when it all kicked off makes me think he was a member of the Drakari Cabals before helping found the Ynnari. All we know is he's Yvraine's bodyguard and a bearer of a crone sword, the only Ynnari besides Yvraine to remain on Macragge during Guilliman's resurrection. The current situation for the Ynnari seems to be a division into two hosts, with Yvraine leading the Aeldari Blade host and the Vizarch leading the soul-bound vanguard. Why as bodyguard the Vizarch is so willing to leave Yvraine alone like that confuses me to some extent, but whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if within or aside from those two hosts there are more groups of Ynnari, especially when you consider the list of famous members or helpers. Seriously, I'm just going to list them, see what you think. Eldrad Ulthran, Prince Yeriel, Asurman, Jane Zar, Fugin, Karadras, Baharoth, Lilith Hesperax, and the entire Cult of Strife. Do you see what I'm getting at here? Honestly, the only group of Eldari who've unanimously chosen not to join the Ynnari are the various covens of the Homunculi, which makes sense if you think about it. The entire deal of the Homunculi is not dying and otherwise cheating death, so why would they follow a god who requires them to die or otherwise ally with the dead? Given the big names already on board with Yvraine and the Vizarch, I wouldn't be surprised if the Ynnari only grow in strength and influence both amongst the Aeldari and on the galactic stage as time goes by. We've mentioned her name and deeds plenty of times throughout this log, so forgive me if I repeat myself a little, but we shall conclude by looking in fuller detail at the Ynnari's overall leader and co-founder along with the Vizarch, Ynnead's emissary, Yvraine. Perhaps fittingly given her return there, Yvraine was born on Craftworld Biel-Tan, though details of her early life have been lost to history. She is seemingly pretty old, having had time to walk many of the Aeldari paths in her lifetime and even leave Biel-Tan entirely to become a corsair, an outcast and pirate living in exile away from the paths. It seems that for a time this was Yvraine's calling, as it were, as rather than return to the safety of the paths as many Corsairs do, she would find her way to Commorragh instead. Some might say this is an indicator of a bloodthirsty streak within Yvraine, but I am unsure, because it may well have been that she planned to be a Corsair for the rest of her days, but was forced to flee due to a mutiny. She would go on to either join a witch cult or otherwise become one of the Dark City's gladiators, and it was in the arenas of Commorragh that Yvraine would meet her destiny and her death. She was killed in the arena, but rather than be left to bleed out, something unheard of occurred. Ynnead, either alone or perhaps even through Eldrad's unsuccessful ritual, had begun to awaken already, and the nascent god, for reasons unknown, chose to flex its muscles somewhat and resurrect Yvraine. This caused what is known as a disjunction in Commorragh. The rebirth of Yvraine blended warp and webway and allowed demons into the Dark City. It's not the first time it's happened, but if you wondered why some say the Ynnari are corrupt, this might be why. Whatever the case, it was at this time that the Vizarch would also enter the fray, and he helped Yvraine elude Biel-Tan and flee Commorragh. From there, the pair would found the Ynnari officially, recruiting from Biel-Tan and creating Incarn from its Infinity Circuit. It seems as though a fair bit of travelling, and no doubt fighting, was done between this incident and the meeting with Khal and the Imperium on Clysis, as members of Craftworld's Ulthwé and Altensar also joined the Ynnari along with others. The mission, however, was not recovery, or recruitment. It was simply the Crone Swords we mentioned earlier. As it stands, this mission recovered 3 of the swords, and the 4th of the 5 was recovered during the invasion of Craftworld Iyanden by the armies of Nurgle. The Ynnari were already turning the tide on the demons and their space hogs, but it required the aid of Prince Yriel to finish the fight at the cost of his own life. For a very short time, anyway, as Yvraine was able to use the power Ynnead used on her to resurrect the prince with the Spear of Twilight, revealed to be the 4th Crone Sword. At this point, Yvraine's power level went somewhat off the charts. En route to Clysis to meet with the Imperials, Ahriman and the Thousand Sons attacked the Ynnari. And do you want to know what Yvraine did? She cured Ahriman's rubric. If memory serves, she was able to rewind the timeline of the rubric Marines with Ahriman, returning them to life and, presumably, confusion about what in hell was going on. After seemingly convincing Ahriman of her sincerity by pulling that stunt, Yvraine showed herself to have a sadistic streak a mile long by having a Wraith Knight smash open a hole in the webway and destroy the returned Astartes. I daren't imagine how annoyed and upset Ahriman will have been by that. The battle leading up to this had been extremely costly for the Ynnari, losing about half of their strength, including the disappearance of Incarn, and only being saved by the Phoenix Lord's arrival. But the Thousand Sons were driven off, and the Aeldari made it to Clysis. There they saved Khal, St. Celestine, and the rest from the Black Legion, guiding them to the Webway and then on to Ultramar. Though most of the Ynnari left the humans' company at that moment, Yvraine and the Vizarch stayed behind, with the former working alongside Khal to resurrect Resurrecting Guilliman. The pair then bid farewell and left Guilliman and Khal to it, assumedly rendezvousing with the other Ynnari and continuing their work. Later, Yvraine was dispatched by Eldrad on a mission, perhaps because she was the only one capable of it, but showing regardless the influence of the Ulthwé Farseer. He had learned from Guilliman and Tigurius, don't ask why they were still talking, of the presence of the Hand of Darkness, an ancient relic used by the Primarch Mortarion in Ultramar that decayed all the wearer touched. So Yvraine was dispatched to recover the artifact, though goodness me did she have to work for it. Travelling via the Black Library, Yvraine was able to resist what may have been the personal temptations of Slaanesh to recover a rose of the goddess Isha, said to grow anywhere one of the last Aeldari gods had walked. The rose granted access to the Garden of Nurgle, potentially due to its protective abilities or because of Isha's residence in Nurgle's manse, and Yvraine was able to reach Mortarion's home of the Plague Planet from the garden and secure the Hand of Darkness. What she's done from there is unknown, and her story is still playing out, but Yvraine will likely be a major player on the galactic stage in the future. As far as equipment goes, Yvraine wields one of the Crone Swords, of course, known as Carvia, which is capable of turning her enemies to ash, and she is ever accompanied by a Gyrings. These creatures are used as familiars by both human and Aeldari, capable of extreme empathy akin to friendship despite their not strictly great intellect, and they can even come to resemble their owners in a physical and a temperamental sense. Yvraine acquired hers from a warlock of Craftworld Altinsar named Gwentilian Onyxblade, who offered her soul to the emissary rather than accompany her into the Eye of Terror in the hunt for the Crone Swords. So end the tales of Yvraine and the Ynnari. Whilst the servants and followers of Ynnead are diverse in origins, they are united in their goal of awakening their god and, in theory, saving their race. Their power and influence is only increasing as more and more Aeldari join their cause, and in this dark age, I don't doubt that they are a source of hope for all walks of Aeldari society that may not have been seen for millennia. We may never know if they are able to succeed, but if they can do so, it may well be the end for Slaanesh and the dawn of a new era for the resurgent Aeldari with the Ynnari at their head, and for the wider galaxy. Now, we must hit the regimental road once more, and next time, I think we'll explore a world just as tied to this modern era as Biel-Tan. Undoubtedly, its armies form one of, if not the, most famous of the regiments of renown, and I hope I can do them justice whilst I'm there. Thank you for watching Tactica Imperialis, and I'll see you all again. Goodbye.